up South Africa. Make sure that South Africa, you are counted with me. Run South Africa. Stand and make sure that our people understand that they need to be counted. You must be counted. You must be part of history. You must make sure that you are one of the people who are going to deliver economic freedom in our lifetime. Freedom in our lifetime. Amanda!
This isn't just rhetoric, it's Julius Malema, unfiltered, unapologetic, and impossible to ignore. For a brief moment, after apartheid collapsed, South Africa believed its painful past was behind it. Nelson Mandela's historic victory offered hope for unity, healing, and a brighter future. But 3 decades later, a different voice emerged, not echoing Mandela's gentle diplomacy, but embodying a more urgent, defiant promise, one the establishment first underestimated then feared.
If there is any commitment Mandela made with them and then we are going against it, they must go to Mandela. We don't owe them anything. We have no agreement with them, nothing. And we are not bound by Mandela's resolutions at all. We are not bound by the decisions taken in the negotiations. We are not there. We are here now. And we are going to chart a way forward and determine our own destiny. Madiba did what he had to do. The conditions then maybe were not favorable for him to do what we are doing now. And we are not Mandela. I think people should get that very clear. We are not Mandela, and we're not going to do Mandela things here.
At the center of the storm, a song.
Kichi, kichi, kichima. Simran Konto Alliance. Shoot to kill. Yamaza. Kill the poor. The farmer. Kill the poor. The farmer. Brr, pa. Pa.
It echoed across rally stages in South Africa and then, astonishingly, across the floor of the White House. Yes, you heard that right. US President Donald Trump played that very clip to South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, presenting it as evidence of white genocide. It was a surreal moment. A real estate mogul turned President of the United States, confronting a cattle herder turned revolutionary from Limpopo. Not government versus government, but narrative versus narrative. Malema's response?
The first black man to turn Oval Office into a cinema is speaking to you now. No one has ever done that history except the man before you.
Call it provocation, call it performance. But beneath all the sarcasm lay a strategic truth. Malema had just inserted himself into global history.
We remain unshaken. Actually, we are more determined after the Donald Trump tweet to expropriate our land without compensation. There is no white genocide here. It's an absolute rubbish to say there is white genocide. There is black genocide in the USA. They are killing black people.
But the controversy refused to die. The song ignited headlines across Western media. Behind the lyrics was something deeper, something far more uncomfortable. Malema was directly confronting the foundation of South Africa's post-apartheid compromise. The flag had changed, but the wealth, the land, the ownership of opportunity stayed in the same hands. The same, mostly white minority. To his critics, he's reckless, dangerous, even unhinged. To his supporters, he's the voice of a promise made and broken.
I'm going to be president of this country, whether you like it or not. And I will preside over the affairs of this country, including presiding over you. I think you must start adjusting to that reality. The sooner you do that, the less chest pains you'll have when that reality comes.
And now he's asking the question the world would rather avoid. Can a nation truly move forward if it refuses to address its past? Well, the answer isn't simple, but Julius Malema made sure that the question could no longer be ignored. To understand Julius Malema, you have to first understand the nation he grew up in. A country divided not just by race, but by entirely different realities. On one side, a white South Africa, westernized, privileged, and by some measures wealthier than much of Europe. On the other, a black South Africa, under-resourced, excluded, and systematically dispossessed. Born in 1981, Malema was a child born into apartheid South Africa. His earliest memories were not those of Mandela's Rainbow Nation, but rather of the iron-fisted brutality of the apartheid regime. Raised by a single mother and grandmother in the poverty-stricken township of Seshego, Limpopo, Malema's formative years were a daily battle with systemic racism, inequality, and poverty. And when apartheid finally fell in 1994, he was 13 years old, just old enough to grasp the significance of that historic moment.
I, Nelson Mandela.
He watched as Mandela took the oath of office and heard the promises of freedom, unity, and prosperity. But as the years went by, something didn't add up. The apartheid struggle had ended for many, but the poverty hadn't. He and millions like him, especially black South Africans, continued to live in the same poverty-stricken conditions, while the economic promises made by the ANC ruling party felt increasingly hollow. Malema was not only disappointed, he was furious, and that anger fueled his meteoric rise. At just 14, he joined the ANC Youth League. By 27, he'd become its outspoken leader, known nationally for his fiery speeches and confrontational style. Malema's voice rang loudest in frustration over unfulfilled promises more than in celebration of ANC accomplishments. He spoke openly about corruption, the failure of economic redistribution, and most provocatively, land ownership.
If South Africans are not ready to expropriate the land because they are scared of sanctions, they are scared of backlash, then don't vote for the EFF. Because you vote for us, we are going to expropriate land. And Donald Trump will come for us. And Britain will come for us. And the EU will come for us.
International media quickly took notice.
Julius Malema.
But Malema didn't retreat, he doubled down, becoming increasingly critical of South Africa's political establishment, particularly the ANC's leadership under Jacob Zuma and later Cyril Ramaphosa. By 2013, Malema had been expelled from the ANC for quote-unquote sowing division. And it was then that he formed his own party, the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF. His message resonated widely, especially with South Africa's youth. The EFF surged in popularity, then becoming the third largest political party in the country in less than 5 years. South African President Ramaphosa routinely found himself in a war of words with Malema, often publicly denouncing Malema's approach as divisive and irresponsible. Ramaphosa, once Mandela's protege, embodies the cautious, incremental change that Malema increasingly despised. And now, South Africa found itself at a crossroad. Malema had managed to do what few others had: push the nation's most sensitive, unresolved post-apartheid reconciliation questions directly to the spotlight.
The only thing we are not prepared to do is to prioritize peace over justice. There must be justice first before there is peace. Because peace without justice, we are pretending.
But the powers that be aligned against Malema were growing. He had stirred powerful enemies in Washington, Pretoria, and beyond. The question now was whether he could survive the backlash that was surely coming his way. Because when you threaten the status quo, history has shown the status quo always fights back. And Julius Malema was about to learn that lesson firsthand. By 2018, Julius Malema was a force reshaping South Africa's political landscape. But he was about to cross a red line that few dared to approach, and even fewer had survived politically intact. He targeted the economic backbone of post-apartheid South Africa. At the heart of Malema's revolutionary call was a single word that terrified investors, politicians, and Western allies alike: land. In South Africa, Land is never just land, it is power, identity, wealth and history. Under colonialism and apartheid, millions of black South Africans were violently dispossessed of their ancestral land. By the end of apartheid, white South Africans who constituted less than 10% of the population controlled nearly a whopping 90% of productive agricultural land. Only a mere 4% of land was owned by black South Africans, who represented over 80% of the population, a statistic Malema highlighted relentlessly. Despite over 3 decades of ANC rule, that imbalance has barely shifted. Then Malema called for land expropriation without compensation. The international backlash was swift and fierce.
I'm not a racist.
No, we're not.
But what's happening here is worse than apartheid. It's a disgrace.
Malema had touched a nerve, triggering a wave of debate, outrage and fear that stretched from Pretoria to Washington.
Are you the proper person?
I'm a proper guy.
I mean, I don't want to go too far back into history, but at various times you failed to actually file a tax return on time.
Yeah.
You've been accused of different financial offences. You've never been convicted, but some of those charges were never brought to court. But you tell South Africans, despite your own history, you are the guy to run their economy.
That's a mind of a lazy person who doesn't do his work. You will have to refer back to 15 years. I've grown up over a period of time, build a solid political party. The only thing you can keep on referring to is what you interviewed me about 12 years ago. Get something new, my brother.
No, I'm very...
Show a skill of a hard-working presenter who does his research. You can't falter me. Since I've made my mistakes on text when I was very young, you keep on referring to old things because you are now beginning to sound like a scratched CD.
And in doing so, he exposed South Africa's unresolved past as well as the fragile state of its future. Commentators painted South Africa as spiraling towards Zimbabwe-style chaos. Then came Trump's tweet. The tweet, later debunked, did exactly what Malema needed. It placed land reform on the global stage, forcing a conversation South Africa had long glossed over. Yet, Trump wasn't Malema's only billionaire critic. Elon Musk, who'd grown up in apartheid South Africa, entered the fray with a terse condemnation, branding Malema's vision of land expropriation as madness. Malema's response was characteristically ruthless.
Alright, come on, sir. Alright, kita, kilame. Hirwata, tamarumo, hasicha. Where were you when I'm fit? Where were you when I'm there? So fast, Kichi.
With Trump, Musk and global media zeroing in on South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa found himself caught in the crossfire. Caught between foreign investors and grassroots pressure, he struggled to contain the storm. With tensions mounting, the EFF began advocating direct actions, occupation of unused farmland, mass protests outside embassies, and marches demanding immediate land transfers. For the establishment, Malema was now an existential threat. Yet the question lingered. Why was Malema so determined to risk economic isolation, sanctions, or even political ruin? He aimed directly at Ramaphosa. He called out the president's ties to big business, accusing him of selling out the revolution, mocked his reform as half-hearted, designed to calm foreign investors, not uplift the poor. Malema's revolutionary ideals drew comparisons with Zimbabwe's Robert Mugabe, comparisons Western media eagerly weaponized against him. But Malema was careful to distinguish his vision from Mugabe's legacy. "We are not grabbing farms," he said, "we are reclaiming dignity." Western capitals remained unconvinced. Diplomatic cables leaked to the press revealed urgent warnings from Washington, Amsterdam and London, expressing fear that Malema's radical stance might trigger instability, regional tension, and a possible domino effect across Africa.
And the oldest one once said to me, "My guy, I hear you're going to chase out all white people when you take over South Africa." I'm like, how is that possible? It will never happen. Hey, I was shocked because I was like, what's going to happen to my white friends? White people have naturalized it. They live with us. We now marry each other. We go to the same churches. We work together. We shop together. Our children now go to schools together, those of us who can afford, right? So why would we call for the slaughtering of such people? We are not calling for the slaughtering of white people. We are fundamentally disagreeing with white people on how we are going to redistribute the land in South Africa to create an equal society.
Yet, paradoxically, the more international pressure piled on, the stronger Malema's domestic support grew, particularly among disillusioned youth who'd seen few benefits from the ANC's decades in power. But inevitably, his open defiance of global and domestic power would carry a cost. Lawsuits piled up, court appearances multiplied, accusations of hate speech and incitement became routine. Threats against Malema's life surged and his private security detail expanded dramatically. Back to the Kill the Boer controversy. When Julius Malema shouted those words from the stage, the tremors were felt in South Africa. But when that same chant played inside the White House, it transformed into something else entirely. It ricocheted across oceans. But this wasn't just about Trump. This was about the lie South Africa told itself after apartheid. That democracy alone would be enough, that reconciliation could replace restitution, that dignity could exist without land. For over 3 decades, South Africa lived in a delicate illusion, politically free, economically chained. And then Julius Malema shattered the silence. As pressure mounted, Malema's rhetoric only grew bolder. He defended Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso as they reclaimed control over their resources. And he inspired a regional awakening. The media called him a populist, elites called him dangerous. But Malema is not alone anymore. Much like elsewhere on the continent, South Africans are revisiting the question of land. It signals a broader resurgence of post-colonial ideology. Burkina Faso under Ibrahim Traore nationalized the Bongo and Wagnion gold mines in 2024 and plans to take over more. On the other hand, Mali reclaimed their Tela mine the year before. In December 2024, Niger seized control of the Somer uranium mine, previously run by French nuclear giant Orano. And that's what makes Malema so dangerous. Not to South Africans, but to power. Because power is rarely afraid of violence. It's afraid of the truth. And Malema has it among the poor, the young, and the forgotten. The establishment tried to paint him as dangerous. Maybe he is. But dangerous to whom? To corrupt politicians? To foreign investors banking on stolen land? To a global system built on sweeping historical injustices under the rug? Yes, to them, Julius Malema is a threat. Because he reminds them of something they hoped was buried with the bones of anti-colonial fighters. Here's the question the world doesn't want to ask. Can a country ever truly heal if it refuses restitution on what was stolen? That's the threat, not the chants, not the red overalls, not the red beret, not the song.
There are courts in South Africa, and the courts have said there is nothing wrong with this song. This is not my song. I did not compose this song. I found this song. The struggle heroes composed this song. All I'm doing is to defend the legacy of our struggle.
The threat is that Malema might be right. And now the question turns to you, the audience. What do you think? Is Julius Malema a visionary leader fighting for long overdue justice? Or is he a reckless radical playing with fire? Drop your thoughts in the comments.